Hey, Nick. I'm in
I'm
black, everybody.
speechless. Yeah, I'm in
I'm
black too.
I'm in black right now. I'm dressed for the funeral. I'm sure everybody's here. Unfortunately, I don't think we'll be saying a lot of kind things as we bury this team tonight. And it is a we understand that this is a 3-0 series, not 4 yet. But there really is nothing that I saw tonight that gives me any hope
Oh no.
or any reason to believe and trust and love this Celtics team. After what we saw tonight, just a pathetic display from. I'm not going to say the tip, but as we got into this game, it was pretty clear that the Celtics were multiple steps behind the Miami Heat, as it seems they have been too often in this series. Tonight was just bad, bad, bad. If you thought game one and game two were bad, especially in the second halves of those games, this was next level, atrocious performance from your Boston Celtics, who lose to the Miami Heat 128-102. It's Jimmy Toscano here with Boomer Age himself, Nick Gelso. Thank you for joining us. We have Bobby Manning, Josue, Sherrod Blakely in Miami. They were front and center for this disaster. They will be joining us momentarily. John Zannis is a game time decision tonight. He is. We'll say this: he might be on Cornelia Street. For those who know what that means. For those who don't, Google it. Otherwise, and I'll be honest, he made the right choice because this was a very, very tough watch. I know the chat's buzzing right now. I don't even have a chance to look at it, guys. So
Oh
I
yeah.
apologize if we're not getting to some of your comments off the top. But I
It's a
think we
lot of
just
fire, Joe.
we need yeah we just need to, I think me and Nick we need to just talk this one out for a few minutes. This is what we do. We start the show. We're going on emotion. We're not ready to break down the X's and O's of everything. We'll let some of the other guys come in and handle that. But I think any Celtics fan who watched this game, first of all, thank you for staying up with us on a Sunday night
Yep.
here in New England.
Credit to you.
They made us wait all damn night to put a performance together like that. It's very tough. So Nick, off the top, we got what do we got here?
Oh,
We got
who
A
did that?
Sherrod himself, I think. If he's ready, we'll give him a
I
second.
don't think he's ready. I don't know who did that. Was not me.
Okay, that's fine. I'll handle it when he's ready. He usually gives us a ready to go. Um, so Nick, what is hit me with it. What's coming to mind right now? Without jumping to the future right off the bat here, because I know a lot of people want to fire this person, want to fire that person, want to trade this person. What do you got? As
Well,
Sherrod joins
Sherrod's
us
here
here.
now. You might as well.
No, Nick,
Yeah.
Nick, we'll start with you real quick. Sherrod, thank you
Let's
for
start with
joining us.
Nick.
Yeah, we'll start with Nick.
Hey, what's up, Sherrod? Sorry to see you in a game like tonight, man. Whew. You know what are you gonna do? I mean, what is my thoughts, Jimmy? I'd never seen. This was probably the most embarrassing. Like let's put it this way: if this happened at, like games at the Garden when the team just doesn't have it and the fans cheer for them in the end, like let's go Celtics and all of that, Jimmy. I don't think anybody was doing that tonight. I kept thinking back on, you know, Miami, yeah, they had noise in their arena tonight, but they also had a lot of empty seats. Like the Garden is always full. The fans show up every night, whether it's Monday, whether it's Friday prime time or Sunday matinee. And there's just too many games this year. The Celtics thought they could just walk out and not show up, like not give. And it was one of those nights again tonight. And I'm just, everybody's saying they want the boomer rage, and I'm sure I'll ramp it up. But like right now, I'm just really speechless. Like
You know
I've never
what?
witnessed collapses like the last three games, Jimmy, ever. I've never seen in game 2 and 3, that lead went so fast when Miami just decided because Boston just laid over. And tonight, Tatum looked like I'm not blaming him either at all. But he looked at times like he was, like in JV when you get the ball and you start doing all this and like moving, your legs are moving, your hands are moving, and you turn it over. He was like doing that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and the reason why I think for those watching aren't seeing Boomer Rage Nick right now, it's the same reason why you guys watching at home aren't livid to the point where you're screaming.
Yeah.
This team has done this so many times where it's it's almost apathy at this point. I know so many people who just can't even they can't even build up the emotion. They're beaten down. I think this team is kind of beating it out of you at this point, where you're almost just kind of waiting for it to end. I think at this point tonight was kind of, and I hate to say it, the players played like that tonight, almost as if they're kind of waiting for it to end.
They're done.
This was one of the more embarrassing displays in a situation.
Yes.
You're in the Eastern Conference Finals. First of all, this isn't just some run-of-the-mill team. This is above and beyond what it appears to be quitting on each other, on the coach, on the goal. And I want to bring in Sherrod here because he was, he had a front row seat to this one tonight. Sherrod, how you doing over there, bud? What's going on in Miami tonight?
Well, I mean, first of all, the Heat fans are ecstatic for good reason. I mean, they have played 3 games and they have won all 3, so they have every reason to be excited. For me, I've never seen a team quit on its ultimate goal the way this team did. I don't think they quit on Joe. I don't think they quit on themselves, but they damn sure quit on a goal, which was to get back to the NBA Finals. And the disappointing part about that was Miami didn't do anything special. They simply ran the same stuff that they've been running this entire series. And they basically said, Celtics, if you're going to tweak things with we how you defend Jimmy, we're just going to keep the ball moving, and we're going to force you to play harder. We're going to force you to try and close out on our shooters, which is something we don't think you're going to do. And they were right. They were absolutely spot on. You got freaking Gabe Vincent looking like Ray Allen out here, dropping 29 points. You got freaking Caleb Martin coming off the bench, giving you 15 points. You got freaking Duncan Robinson, who was in the doghouse for a significant portion of the year, hit you with 10 points in the second quarter, finished with like 18. And then you got guys like your sixth man of the year, Malcolm Brogdon. And again, not blaming him, but I'm sorry, Malcolm. I need more than 0 points from the sixth man of the year. I need more than 0 for 6 from the field from the sixth man of the year. And you start going down the line of the players. And then, let's not forget about Joe Mazzulla. This was not one of his shining moments out there. When he challenged a call in the first quarter, which again, he was right. It was a bad call on the official's part.
But why waste it then?
Well, that's the thing. I mean,
he didn't waste it. That would have been Rob's 3rd foul, even though they barely played him after.
But still, man,
Rob wasn't making an impact in this game.
And there's so much game left at that point.
It didn't matter. They lost by 30. You might as well use it. It didn't matter.
But you were down by like you weren't down by that many at that point when you were in the first quarter, Jimmy.
Right.
You weren't even looking at a double-digit deficit.
I was fine with that.
Mike, I was fine with it only because I knew he was right. Just watching it in real time, we were like, that was a bullshit.
You needed something, Sherrod. You needed something to go your way.
But you know what happened? Rob had the and one, missed the free throw.
Yeah.
And then you go to the second quarter, and then you're down by 10. You're down by 10 like that again. And so what exactly did you gain out of that exactly? You have no chance of getting a call down the stretch. And there were a couple moments where I thought that he might have challenged if he had one. Bottom line is this. Joe Mazzulla, Tatum, Brown, you go down the line, they simply quit on the goal, which is get to the NBA Finals. Because they did not play with the kind of focus, effort, intensity, edge that you need to get there. And for me, that's the disappointing part about this. I don't care that they lost again to Miami. I do care about the fact that the goal was to get to the NBA Finals, and knowing how important this game was, I don't care how many points you lose by, you got to play harder than what we saw out there tonight. You have to play harder than that.
I felt bad for them at points, because they just looked so deer in headlights. Like, they looked astonished.
I didn't feel bad for them at all. I felt bad for all the Celtics fans who had to watch this one tonight.
Well, I felt very bad for the
Tatum
Celtics
and Brown
fans.
combined 1 for 14 from 3. Sherrod, nothing fell for these guys tonight. I don't even know if half the shots were bad shots. They just couldn't hit anything.
The thing about their shooting numbers, they weren't great, obviously, but early in the game, those were the only 2 guys that could make shots. At one point, those 2 were like 8 for 16 combined, and the rest of the team was like 4 for 16. So they weren't getting any help.
I mean, they didn't get any help.
Missed a ton of open shots. That again, if you make significant number of your open shots, you're not out of the game as quickly. In fact, you could have potentially rallied and won this game. They could not make shots, and Miami spent most of the game shooting better than 60%. If you're shooting less than 40, the other team is shooting better than 60. that gap is going to only grow wider and wider, particularly when you're doing the things such as ball movement and things like that typically work for you. But the bottom line for the Celtics is that they didn't have enough of their core guys step up and make the plays that they needed to be forget about winning. They didn't make enough shots to even be competitive. And to double down on the problems was their defense. They just did not close out well enough. They weren't aggressive enough. They spent more time bitching and moaning about the refs than we've seen in a while, which always annoys me. And it wasn't just a Grant Williams show either. There was a lot of them. So, Nick, you're about to say something. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, I don't even know what I was going to say, Sherrod. I just, again, I guess I don't feel bad for them. I'm focusing back on that. I just, when you see a team that's better than they are and they just looked so scared or jarred or something, like it was embarrassing. Like as a fan, I was extremely embarrassed, extremely.
Well,
and as far as, go ahead, Jimmy.
No, go. As far as what?
No, I was going to say, as far as Mazzulla goes, I mean, he's calling timeouts with. I would have left the starters in the game at this point.
When?
I really would have. I would have at least for a little longer, man. I don't know.
They were down by 30.
Off the hook. They were down by 30, but they got down by 30, and they didn't play hard. I mean,
they didn't play hard.
You're gonna break them for the next game. Who matters? Put your foot down.
I would have sat their asses and just made them watch. I would much have rather them sit there and watch your team get your asses handed.
Look what you did.
Because the reason you're getting your asses handed to you as you guys sit here and watch is because of you. You didn't play with the focus. You didn't play with the edge. You did not bring it the way you need to bring it at this level. And Miami once again did that. And give them all the credit in the world. Spoelstra has those guys playing so damn hard. And the one thing that people I think often lose sight of is that when you have a guy like a Jimmy Butler who does the things that he does, he has a tendency to breed what I like to call irrational confidence. Where you got guys like Gabe Vincent who, put him on any other team and he's probably average or below average coming off your bench. He's a starter dropping 29 in game 3 of the Eastern Conference Finals. And he does it with a ridiculous amount of confidence. Duncan Robinson, he's knocking down shots, and we know he's a shooter, but the confidence that he's shooting with now, and the way that he's moving without the ball, getting layups.
He was out of the rotation.
Exactly.
Exactly.
And the only reason he's in is because Victor Oladipo's hurt, and so is Tyler Hero. So the message, if I'm Joe Mazzulla, I wanted them to watch that, and I want them to watch that.
Yeah.
It's
between now and game 4.
You know what?
I hope they do.
They're the reason why this team is in this 0-3 hole. Just like they were a big part of why they got to this point in the finals.
Where I lost my thought before, it was about defense. And all year long, you'd hear Gary, Bobby, a lot of the guys in the locker room pressing Joe a little bit on defense, and he would go back to three-point shooting as being the major criticism. Not enough threes. Like, he wanted so badly for them to be an offense first team, I feel like. And here at the end of the day, as it normally would, the defense betrays them. And I'm going to say something. Charles Barkley at halftime, like, he brought it out. He said, I'm not embarrassed for these guys on the court. I'm embarrassed for the guys that came before them that wore that uniform. He's like, because this is. He said, I never thought I'd see a Lakers or Celtics team fold the way these Celtics did tonight. That's coming from Charles Barkley, not Nick.
I want to go back to what Sherrod said earlier, talking about Butler and how these guys have irrational confidence. There's an old saying, a rising tide lifts all the ships, right? Isn't that what the saying is? Something along those lines. And the point I'm trying to make
is it works.
Jimmy Butler brings that out of his teammates. Eric Spoelstra brings that out of his players. He gives, Butler is the type of guy that's going to make you feel like you can contribute and that you are good enough to play. And Eric Spoelstra's going to put his players in position to succeed. He's going to play to their strengths. So when Duncan Robinson kind of comes out of nowhere, he's ready to go because he hasn't lost the belief in himself. Eric Spoelstra hasn't lost the belief in himself. I honestly wonder if Mazzulla, the way he's sort of, I guess, treated some of the playing time situations here, if these guys have lost confidence in themselves or if Mazzulla has lost confidence in them. I'm talking about, Grant up until a couple games ago, Hauser, who can't sniff any playing time. Guys who have been in and out of the lineup this year in spurts are nowhere to be found now. Whereas if you look at the Miami Heat, they've got all these guys coming out of left field, undrafted guys. They tossed that stat up on the broadcast tonight. Guys who, like you said, Sherrod, are just filling in for guys who are hurt, who typically don't play as much. Gabe Vincent, Caleb Martin, guys who are not by any stretch household names. And in fact, I would imagine the average NBA player hasn't even heard of these guys before. Average NBA fan, hasn't even heard of these players before.
That you would expect almost them, Jimmy, to fold under pressure, not your
you would think,
superstars on your
but
team.
Because the quote-unquote, here we go with the culture talk again there in Miami, is just different. And it's behind their leader. It's behind their leader, Jimmy Butler, who we have right here. Jimmy Butler didn't have an unbelievable game tonight. He didn't need to. He got the help from the players on his team. But when you look over here, when you look on the Celtics side, I already tossed it up. Jaylen Brown's stat line, 12 points on 6 of 17, 2 assists, 6 rebounds. Jason Tatum, 14 points on 1 of 7 from 3 and 6 of 18 from the field. These are your two leaders. And I can't help but think that the team is falling in line behind these two guys who just are checked out at this point, it sounds like. They're just not engaged. They're not playing two-way basketball, Sherrod. Jaylen Brown has had a horrible stretch here. I don't know where it's coming from. You don't know what you're going to get from these guys on a night-in, night-out basis. And I feel like that's the problem. It starts at the top, whether you want to talk about Tatum or Brown or both of those guys. I don't know if there's an identity crisis going on right now within this team, but it feels like there is a captainless ship just floating into the abyss with nowhere to go.
Well, they are captainless in many respects, but the thing that, and I have to remind myself, and I've seen enough playoff basketball to know when you get this deep into the postseason, this is where your coach and his impact and his ability to get things done shines. I've said all along, Jimmy, I've said the playoffs have a way of exposing you, good or bad.
Yes, you
and
have.
Joe Mazzulla has been exposed. Joe Mazzulla has been exposed as being a very good.
The whole team has been exposed. I think that Celtics players have been exposed as front runners.
But it's up to the coach to shift the narrative.
I'm not putting it on the coach.
Listen, Jimmy, I'm not saying it's all him, but damn it, he's part of the problem.
It's a big part of it.
Sure, he's definitely part of it.
We need to stop acting as if we can't call out the coach for not
I
doing
agree.
We call him out all the time.
I agree.
Actually, we don't. I mean, he's had games where he's done a hell of a job, and we've made sure we talk more about his good games than we talk about Jaylen Brown's good games. And Jaylen has way more good games than Mazzulla does. But my thing is this, Jimmy. Mazzulla, you have to remember how he basically got put in his position. This wasn't a lifelong number 2 coach who was a lead assistant who finally got over that hurdle. He leapfrogged in a way that most coaches in the NBA don't get that opportunity to do. And I think Joe has gotten better as the season has progressed. But once we got to the playoffs, this was the worst coach matchup he could possibly have. The absolute worst, because the thing about Spoelstra that we talk about him as being one of the best, if not the best coach in the NBA right now. But people forget that he wasn't always viewed that way. He had to grow into that. And I think Joe Mazzulla will eventually grow into being one of the better coaches in the NBA. He's not there yet. And just like 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 years ago, Spo wasn't there, but eventually he got there. He learned how to handle different types of talent. He got better. I think Joe Mazzulla will also get better, but Joe ain't there yet. And when you look about the success this team has had in the regular season, a lot of the success has to be attributed to the players. No question, Jimmy. Just like a lot of their struggles now are going to be attributed to the players, because at some point, as much as the players can carry the team, at some point the coach has got to carry the team too. At some point, the coach has to make the big ballsy calls and decisions to shake things up that gets your team over the hump. Think about Brad Stevens when they played Chicago back in 2017 and they were down in the same situation. What did he do? He put in freaking Gerald Green in the starting lineup, a dude who had hardly played. And that was a genius move, because all of a sudden they went from being down 0-2 to winning 4 in a row. Now, obviously, Rondo got hurt and Rondo didn't play the last 4 games. But to Brad's credit, he did something dramatic and radical that nobody saw coming, and it put them over the top. I think Joe made the logical decisions and made the logical changes, but sometimes you have to be illogical, which brings up, because you got to have, to me, the best coaches have a ridiculous amount of irrational confidence. That's going to be the word of today, kids. Irrational confidence. That's why
like that.
That's why Miami's up 3-0. That's why the Celtics are trying to figure out where we go from here. That's why there are going to be more questions than I think Brad Stevens anticipated he's going to have to address this offseason, because he does not have enough irrationally confident guys. Because if
No.
you did, they would have found a way to step up in either games 1, 2, or 3 in this series. And it hasn't happened.
The other thing is, and you have to give it some thought in the case that, yes, Joe's going to develop, and I agree with you, Sherrod. You bring up a good point about Spoelstra. But for this team now, is he the guy? Because Ime Udoka was brought in, the players loved him, but it was like tough love. They talked about his toughness. And it just went, boom, the door swung totally the other way, and now it's kind of very, very loosey-goosey. Is this the team? Is this the coach for the team? Because this team seems to be a little too unserious the way it is. They don't understand big moments or something like this.
Well, the other thing too, and again, I don't want to make this about Joe Mazzulla's got to go, but there's some things that they need to address. One of the things they need to address without question is that bench, the assistants. I think you need a hard ass on that team right now. Someone that's going to.
Sherrod, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but has it the drop off after the All-Star break? And I'm taking this off the top of my head, but this morning I was thinking about it, and it seems to coincide with Stoudemire leaving.
Yeah, I mean, I've had many conversations with Damon Stoudemire. I've known Damon all the way back to when he was at Arizona, and he came to the Carrier Dome and gave my cues to business. And the thing that if I had to describe him in like 1 or 2 words, it would be irrationally confident. He's always been that way. And when he's working with players, you better believe that he's going to slow drip that gravitas. That's just who he is. Yeah. And when you lose someone like that and you don't feel it, you're going to see slippage in that irrationally confident state of mind. The Celtics, they're going to be kicking themselves for years if they don't find a way to do what has never been done before. They would have to do what has never been done before, which obviously down 0-3, there's a reason why it's never been done before, because it's incredibly hard and it takes a different level of irrational confidence that no one has been able to get to. Rasheed Wallace was on a Portland team that was down 3-0, and they were able to rally back and make it a 3-3 series. And I just remember having, it takes so much out of you when you are in that particular position to come back like that. And I don't know if this team has the mental or physical capacity to do that, to be honest with you. And to me, I'm more concerned about the mental dynamic and all this more than the physical, because there's a certain level of mental toughness you have to have in order to advance at this point in the playoffs, and they just don't have it. They just don't have it. And I don't know if it's something that's going to come over time, but it's something that they better figure out, if not in this series, certainly by the time we get to training camp next year, because if they roll out the same guys and they don't make any significant changes, and they don't bring in someone who is a clear, undeniable tough ass, whether it's an assistant coach, whether it's a player, we're going to see, this is going to become Groundhog's Day.
It already is starting to.
So I want to read a tweet, and then I think we have some video that we can post up. This is the Magic Johnson on Twitter. In my 44 years of being associated with the NBA, I never thought I'd see a Boston Celtics team, a franchise with 17 championships, quit. Wow. I know Celtics fans all over the world must be disgusted and devastated. And then he goes on to say what the score of the game was. We have some video here from Joe Mazzulla after the game talking to reporters that we're going to toss up here, I think, right now.
Over the last 48 hours? Yeah, I just didn't have him ready to play. I should have, whatever it was, whether it was the starting lineup, whether it was an adjustment, I have to get them in a better place, ready to play, and that's on me.
Joe, you've always been very level whenever things are going well, going poorly. At some point tonight, did you just really let them have it and show all the emotion that you have? And at this moment, do you feel like you need to show that to save the season? I think the most important thing is just sticking together, and then I have to be better. I got to put them in better positions. I got to get them ready to play. And I have to have the game plan ready for us to be physical and to execute. And it's important that we stick together.
I don't want to say you lost this team, but is there a disconnect between you and the players at this point? Is there something not quite working that might have worked in February or January that you're not telling them to lose by 28 points, but you're telling them to try? So is there a disconnect?
Yeah, that's where I have to be better, is figure out what this team needs to make sure that they're connected, they're physical, and they're together by the time we step on the floor.
You've been caused that disconnect?
Not sure.
Well, okay. First of all, I always appreciate when a coach just acknowledges and takes accountability for their role in the demise. And I do appreciate that about Joe Mazzulla. And again, like I've said, I'm pretty consistent about this. I think Joe's going to be a really good coach. He's just not quite where this team's talent could benefit most greatly from a head coach. That being said, I don't know what he can do differently. I mean, if his natural demeanor is to be even keeled about everything, anything he does out of that or away from that is not going to be seen as authentic. And the one thing that the easiest way to lose your team is when they think that you're not being authentic. So I think Joe has to be very careful in how he approaches the next 48 hours. And at the absolute essence of what he has to do is be himself. You know, I mean, I've been around coaches who are level-headed like Joe. I've been around coaches who will snap. You know, I think like Rick Carlisle is a guy who I love. Rick is one of my all-time favorite coaches. Full disclosure, Rick can be very cool and calm, but damn it, when things get shaky and kind of squirrely like this, Rick is going to be that guy. He's going to be that fire-breathing, get-in-your-face coach because that's who he is. And Joe, I think, as much as he's trying to figure out what he has to do for the players, he's got to figure out what he has to do to be better. He has to figure out what adjustments does he have to make as a coach going forward so that he can be more impactful in these moments. Because the one thing that Celtics fans realize, and I think is one of the things that they're really just stomach churning right now about, is they know these opportunities do not come along very often.
Yeah.
I can't recall the last time the NBA championship, getting to the finals, was as wide open to win as it is this year. That's one of the reasons why you look at a team like the Denver Nuggets. They are not leaving anything to chance. They are playing with laser precise focus.
Foot on the necks.
Yeah, they're not allowing any, they're not allowing anyone to frankly change that. And look, I mean, they've done what no one thought could ever be done. LeBron is facing a 3-0 deficit. He's never faced that in the playoffs. First time ever. And that's what you do when you realize that you have an opportunity that you can't take for granted, because no one is promised getting back to the NBA Finals or winning a championship or being a contender. So many things have to go your way. And it feels as though the Celtics are wasting that moment because, again, we played 3 games, and I'm more bothered by the direction that this series is going than the actual results. If all 3 games are relatively close and they just came up short, okay, it happens. But Miami is getting stronger as this series moves on, and the Celtics are looking mentally and physically weaker.
And they all watch the media constantly, and guess what? They got crushed. I mean, Magic Johnson just tore
Magic, Charles, a lot of guys who know a lot about the NBA over the years are seeing stuff that they don't typically see.
And that's before Felger and Maz started tomorrow, and all the ESPN guys.
So I want to remind. We want to remind everybody that the exclusive wagering partner of the Garden Report is FanDuel Sportsbook. And right now you can get a no-sweat first bet up to $1,000 in bonus bets when you go to FanDuel.com/Boston. Guys, I just looked on FanDuel to see what the Game 4 line is. Any guesses? It's the Celtics plus 1.5. I think
unbelievable.
First time playoffs that they are the underdog, and honestly,
it's overdue, Jimmy.
It's definitely overdue. If you were just betting money line against the Celtics every game, you'd be up a lot of money over the last month because of the way that these guys have dropped games that they were heavily favored in. So again, that's $1,000 in bonus bets when you go to FanDuel.com for a no sweat first bet. You guys, you still have time to make that bet on the Celtics. You'll get it all back in bonus bets.
Get it back.
Do it while you still can.
You can't lose. You get it back, and then you can bet on the Miami Heat. Then you can bet on the Heat.
Or you can bet the Heat. Shit, why not? Bet the Heat at this point.
No, after the Celtics lose, you can
bet the Heat right now, too. The Celtics don't deserve your bets the way that they're playing right now, guys. So, very interesting comments from Joe Mazzulla. He seems pretty sullen and downtrodden after game 2. I would say at this point he doesn't have any answers, Sherrod. It's pretty clear. And you go back to, okay, they got away from double big to start this game, but it wasn't Rob in the starting lineup. It was Al Horford, who's had a pretty tough series. And then they go to Rob. He picks up 2 quick fouls. You don't really see much of him the rest of the game, really. Ineffective again. The Rob Williams story of his career. Just can't depend on the guy. And I know we've spent a lot of time on Joe Mazzulla. I'm very interested. If they go down without a fight, like it seems like they will, I'm very, very interested to see what Wick and Brad decide to do in the situation. I thought it was maybe a little premature that they extended Mazzulla when they did right before the NBA All-Star break. I don't know what the terms of that deal is. I don't think anybody does, so I don't know how tied up into them they are. Certainly, we've seen much better coaches get fired for much less, especially recently. So, and there's a lot of good coaches available right now. So I have no idea. I'm not going to even try to guess what direction they're going to go in.
They're not going to cut him loose. They're not going to cut him loose. No, it's if you cut him loose, it would be your 3rd coach in 3 years. That's a horrible look.
Well, so that's
and you knew going into this. Yeah, and you knew going into this that it was going to be some development that he's going to have to do. He didn't have the benefit of like Brad Stevens, who came from the college ranks, but Brad was a head coach before he, and so was Joe to some extent. But
let me ask you this, Sherrod, right now. Sorry to cut you out. Let me ask you this: is Joe Mazzulla ready for this?
Ready for what is this? What is
being
this?
being a head coach in the NBA on a team that is designed to win a championship? Is he ready for it?
That's two separate things you're talking about. Is he ready to be an NBA head coach? Absolutely. I think he can do that. Is he ready to be an NBA head coach to win a championship? Clearly not.
So then why keep him? So then why keep him if you have a roster that's designed to win an NBA championship and a coach that isn't ready for that task? What are we doing here?
Bad look to have 3 coaches in. Yeah,
it is a bad look. It is a bad look, Nick, but it's also a bad look to consistently underperform every year. So which one are you going to choose?
Jimmy, you haven't consistent.
You were there in the finals, bro.
You haven't underperformed every year. You got to the freaking NBA Finals a year ago and were 2 wins away. You had to make a pivot because the coach that you thought you were going to have, you were not going to be able to keep. So when you start looking at that, and remember, Will Hardy was the lead assistant. He went to Utah. So obviously your number one option would have been Will because he was the most ready. Then you start looking at the rest of your coaching staff. You maybe could go with David Stoudemire, but what about Joe Mazzulla? Because Joe Mazzulla was also interviewed for the Utah job. So clearly he's done enough before he got this job to where he's on the radar for the other 29 teams. So if you're Brad Stevens and you got to make this hire, and this is a guy that Danny Ainge gave some serious thought to bring into Utah with Will or instead of Will, you got and you know him and you hired him. You absolutely,
and your superstar wants him here.
You absolutely knew that he was going to have some growing pains, and
that's fine. But now you're learning. I'm not disagreeing with the initial hire. I'm talking about moving forward.
Who would you have? Well, let me ask you this question.
I'm not disagreeing with the initial hire.
But who would you have rather they had that was ready to coach a team and win a championship? Because I got to tell you, when they were making a decision, the fields were not plentiful. There was not an abundance of Doc Rivers, Nick Nurse, and those types out there. Frank Vogel's, no, they weren't out there.
Exactly, Sherrod. So again, that's not really where I'm at. I'm talking about next season. I'm not criticizing them for hiring Joe Mazzulla for this season. I understand.
You don't think Joe will be better next season? I do.
Maybe. I mean, yeah.
Are the players going to be better working for Joe? That's the question.
But Sherrod, what I'm saying is this: now all those coaches are available that you just named. So
I know,
you have a decision to make. That's kind of what I'm getting at.
So do I go with a coach who flamed out elsewhere because things got sour real quick, or do I let this guy that I brought in, who had 1 year to do this job, was not expected to be the head coach, but clearly got better as the regular season progressed, and he gets to the playoffs, and he's getting his ass kicked by the one coach who's probably the best coach in the NBA.
Doc outcoached him too, Sherrod. Doc outcoached him too. I mean, he won the series, but Doc did outcoach him.
Your talent, more times than not, should be able
Who's
to
the coach of Atlanta? I think he outcoached him too.
Well, Quinn Snyder is a good coach.
No, I'm joking. I'm joking. Wait.
But my thing is this, though. I'm not ready to just throw him to the curb because he didn't.
He needs an assistant.
Yes.
Stack his bench.
I think he needs more support on that coaching staff. Absolutely.
They need a player, a former player.
And I just I can't envision them cutting him loose because you would then. It's a bad
horrible
idea. Bad idea, Jimmy.
On many
and I love you, Jimmy.
Okay.
You're my guy, but this is that's a bad idea.
First of all,
everybody's saying it, Jimmy. I agree. Go ahead.
I'm not saying fire Joe Mazzulla. What I'm saying is, Sherrod, I mean, you just said it. He's not ready to coach a championship contending team. So what are we doing here? That's all my question is. So
you're trying to develop him so that he can get to the point where he can coach a team. But this isn't the
time to develop a coach if you have a team that's already at that point to win a championship.
So they were a champion. They were a championship team at the beginning of the season.
Yes.
So you keep Joe
they were
and
a
trade
favorite.
Jalen.
So was Milwaukee at some point. So I mean, you start going by all the. So were the Lakers, and they barely got into the damn playoffs.
So my thing is this, Sherrod. He was named interim head coach, which everybody, I think, based on the circumstances surrounding everything that was going on, made sense. Go with somebody within the organization that's familiar with the team and the players and the system. I get it. You go through the year, maybe things aren't exactly going the way everyone thought they might at this point, the way that the Celtics have played over the last, really the playoffs in general. Do you just get the band back together again, bring the coach back, bring Tatum and Brown back? I mean, you're pretty much built to have most of these guys back next year. But if you don't believe
who do you want, Jimmy? Who do you want to be the coach of this team next year?
It's not about who I want, and it's not my job to find the coach. I'm just throwing it out there that there's certainly other options if it seems like there is a disconnect. That I think it was Gary who asked if there was a disconnect between the players or the players and the coaches. So I mean, Sherrod, I hate to say it, and I'm not blaming the coaches. I know the coaches are always a scapegoat. You look around the league and all these great coaches, they don't have a job right now. It's hard for me to believe that it was all their fault. But nobody wants to blame the players, it seems, even though I do. I blame Tatum and Brown. But nobody wants to touch those guys. So are you gonna do anything, or are you just gonna trust and love the Celtics and bring the band back together again and go through this whole charade once again? And by the way, Sherrod, they have underperformed in other years. They underperformed in the bubble to the same Heat team where everyone thought that they were supposed to beat that Heat team. And guess what? It was wide open that year too. So this is now another year that they've underperformed. And they underperformed when they had Kyrie Irving on the team. And
that's the start of the underperformance. I don't want to go there.
Right, yeah, but there's a lot of this. Some of those same players are still on this team. So again, you want to talk about the core: Tatum, Brown, Smart. There are some consistencies in this underperformance of your expectations. So, who do you want to blame? Do you want to make any changes? And again, we have all offseason to talk about this. But I mean, to sit here and say that it's don't fire the coach, don't make any trades, don't re-sign everybody and do it all over again. It seems like what are we doing?
That's not what we're saying. I mean, I think you have to look long and hard about Al Horford's situation. Al has been horrible in this series.
His role's too big.
Well,
he's coaching now too. He's coaching now.
You
too.
need to
see him on the bench.
You need to catch and shoot and play some defense. That's his role. I don't think the role is too big. I just don't think he physically can fulfill what they need him to do.
He should retire, and they should put him as an assistant.
That's like you're looking at $1 million budget and cutting down like the Exterminator for like $10,000. You know
That's a good one, Jimmy.
No, but like that's not gonna fix the issue.
I'm going down the list, Jimmy. He was the first one at the list.
Okay.
Malcolm Brogdon has to be bigger and better in big games. He was a complete MIA. Derek White has regressed. There's no question about that. Rob is starting to show those foul magnet tendencies that we saw earlier in his career. You have to evaluate all those guys. Those 4 guys I point out specifically because those are 4 guys that you in general feel are part of your core. You need to evaluate where do they fit into the matrix of things going forward. And then there's Marcus Smart. I mean, he's been the guy that it seems like he's been like kind of on that cliff of are you going to keep him? Are you going to get rid of him? He seems like he's been there for 2 or 3 years now. Once again, he's another one that you've got to think about where does the future lie with him. And as far as Tatum and Brown are concerned, I'm just, they have not playing great basketball, but I'm not cutting them loose. Hell no. I will evaluate everyone in their future with this team except those 2. And the reason why is because no matter what you do trade-wise involving Tatum and Brown, you are going to lose the deal. because you're not going to get fair market value from a talent standpoint for those guys. Not going to happen. And they're so young where the idea of getting a bunch of draft picks the way Danny Ainge typically does things, that doesn't make a lot of sense because those guys are going to be outperforming whoever you draft for a number of years. I mean, you're looking at basically hoping that you hit the lottery jackpot and get a guy that could be maybe an all-star in like 3 or 4 years. But guess what? Tatum and Brown are still going to be all-stars. So it's like, we got rid of a guy who's, and by the way, in 3 or 4 years, they're going to be in their prime. I don't think people realize that. They still haven't hit the apex of who they can be as players. They still got 2-3 years before they're going to be there. So the rest of the team, those other 4 people I made, you absolutely have to evaluate what role, if any, they're going to have going forward. But Tatum and Brown, those 2 are off limits because you're not going to get anything of substance in return.
So, and Sherrod, I mean, listen, I understand that Tatum and Brown are obviously extremely talented. You're talking about first team All-NBA, second team All-NBA, and that's great. And I guarantee you that if they do end up on other teams someday, I'm not saying when it is, that they'll continue to be exceptional basketball players on those teams, maybe even better in different roles. But the problem I have with these 2 guys, and I think a lot of people have with these 2 guys who watch this team day in and day out, is that they don't maximize each other's talents when they're out there. They don't make each other better. The old saying that I just mentioned earlier, rising tide lifts all the boats. It doesn't seem like those 2 guys share a brain out there. Like when I watch Jokic and Murray play, for example, it feels like they know where each other's are going to be at all times. And it's different positions. I get that. And that's another problem maybe too, with the fact that you have these 2 guys that maybe aren't as complementary as you'd like them to be. So I don't have the answers tonight. I don't think anybody does. I think a lot of us are just frustrated with what we've seen, but it does feel like all right. We got Jaylen Brown here. We got a little Jaylen Brown video that we're going to toss up. Let's see what he had to say after this one, if he even had anything to say. Maybe.
Jaylen, you guys have always taken pride in being a prideful team, but it seemed like there was some quit out there tonight. What happened and when did the disconnection happen? It just seems like you guys are not on the same page chemistry-wise with the coach, schemes, all the above.
I don't even know where to start. It's obvious letdown. I feel like we let our fan base, organization down. We let ourselves down, and it was collective. We can point fingers, but in reality, it was just embarrassing.
Jaylen, Joe Mazzulla says that you guys lost your defensive identity. Do you agree with that? And if so, where do you think that started, where that disconnect started?
I'm not sure. Give credit to the Miami Heat, man. Those guys are playing unbelievable right now. And we just seemed to couldn't get stops. Those guys are hitting shots and playing well, playing with confidence, and we allowed them to have that.
Pretty speechless, I would say. I mean, he's at a loss for words, giving credit to the Heat. Can't figure out why the Celtics are coming out with the lack of energy. Apologize to the fans. What a far cry from just a couple weeks ago when he called out the fans for not showing the same amount of intensity or energy that he expected at home. So it's different tone tonight, Sherrod.
Well, the idea of calling out your home fans when you got a losing record in the playoffs at home is just not good. It's just not a good look. They have to get better. They're not competing. Forget about winning. You have to compete, and that's more on the players than anyone else. When they go back and look at this game and they look at all those shots that he talks about the Miami Heat making, most of those shots are open. Most of those shots are Miami simply moving the ball, and at some point, the Celtics stop hustling to close out. And when they do, Miami makes them pay. That is how they are winning this series. And the Celtics, There's just not time to figure that stuff out. That's basketball 101. When the team is moving the ball, you're rotating, you're doubling, and you're shifting, and doing lots of movement. You make sure you at least contest as many shots as possible, and that was not the case. And what winds up happening, folks get confident, and then next thing you know, the shots that you are contesting for them, it becomes a muscle memory thing. They're just knocking down shots, whether you're in their face or not. They have opened up this Pandora's box to this Miami Heat offense that Miami is showing no signs of it closing anytime soon. And I don't know how they can expect Game 4 to be any different than Games 1, 2, or 3 at this point.
Yeah.
I'm speechless.
Wow, the Nick Josue himself is speechless. It's the first time I think I've heard him say that.
I know, it really is. I mean, I'm on here kind of just blanked out and numb, and I don't even have rage. Like, I'm just.
It's kind of like
I'm ready
Jalen.
for it to be over.
Unfortunately,
Jalen looked dejected.
Nick, what you're feeling, it seems like that's how the Celtics are feeling, and that's how they're playing. They're not playing angry. Yeah. Did any of those guys look angry after Game 2? Did any of them look angry and shoot around? Sherrod? Yeah. Mm-hmm. Where is the sense of urgency with this team? It's too late now. The sense of urgency was for the last few days.
Should have been there from day one.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Should have been there from day one when you realize we need 4 wins against a team that barely got into the postseason, and we do that, we go on and can bring home banner 18. And but we saw signs of this from the Philly series when they lost Game 1 without Joel Embiid, which is embarrassing. You take away Jokic, you take away Tatum, you take away anyone who's the clear front and center best player, and you put them in a playoff situation on the road. That should be a fat L every time. The Celtics, they are. It's just a maddening bunch to watch because we've seen them play great basketball this year. We've seen them take on challenges and find ways to overcome them. And then they get to this point in the season when they're so close to achieving what they came into the season wanting to do. And they're just playing like crap from top to bottom. No one has stepped their game up. Not a single player on this team has shown themselves to be better now than they were in the regular season. And then you look up at the Miami Heat, you got freaking Caleb Martin, you got freaking Gabe Vincent. You start going down the line of everyone pretty much not named Jimmy Butler, and they're all playing better. And even Jimmy is doing what Jimmy typically does this time of year, which is lead his team, make big shots. And it's embarrassing to see how quickly they have succumbed to the struggle of being great. Because it's not easy being a great team, and it's tough, it's hard work. And they seem like they're not right now willing to put in that work to be great. And that is going to get them an early vacation.
Facts,
2 days
my dog.
from now.
Facts, my dog. So, guys, we want to let you guys know about another sponsor of ours, Factor Meals. During the prime spring season, you need wholesome, convenient meals to energize you for warmer, more active days and keep you on track reaching your goals. Factor, America's #1 ready-to-eat meal kit, can help you fuel up fast with ready-to-eat meals delivered straight to your door. You'll save time, eat well, and tackle everything on your to-do list. Visit factormeals.com/garden50 to get 50% off your first box. I already made the joke about 50 days till Summer League is the reason behind that, but it rings even more true now than it did a couple of days ago. Nick, you're a Factor Meals guy. I mean, what's better than getting some nice healthy meals delivered to your front steps?
And it's not like all the other food boxes, Jimmy, either, because these are more, they come fresh. They're not frozen. And
that's huge.
They're already chef prepped. So really all you're doing is
dietitian approved, different options every week. Yep.
Only 500, I think max 550 calories, packed with protein.
It's not too late to get the beach body ready. Memorial Day is a week from now, right? And a lot of people have probably been putting it off, but your diet is the first step. Changing up some of your habits. It's tough going to the supermarket and trying to figure out exactly what to shop for. These guys will do it for you. They'll cook it all for you, deliver it to your door, and practically just
2 minutes.
Cook it for you too.
And it's less expensive than going to the grocery store. Trust me.
Absolutely. So head to factormeals.com/garden50. Use the code GARDEN50 to get 50% off your first box. That's code GARDEN50 at factormeals.com/garden50 to get 50% off your first box. And Sherrod, you mentioned it. You mentioned the guys on the Heat that were stepping up in big times. And we look at here's one for the Celtics that can't quite say the same. The sixth man of the year. Talk about guys who have made a habit of not being the guy, but coming in, off the bench and having an effect on things, but not tonight and not enough this series. 0 points tonight from Malcolm Brogdon. 0 of 6 from the field, a minus 23 in 18 minutes. And it doesn't stop there. I mean, we mentioned Horford earlier. Here you go, 8 points on 3 of 6 from the field, a minus 21. Grant, 12 points, 2 assists. I mean, that's actually honestly a decent performance from him.
A lot of that came in garbage time.
Yeah, exactly. Derek White, you mentioned him earlier too, 9 points. I mean, Derek White has had a really bad last 2 series here, started in Philly. So kind of turned into a bit of a pumpkin again here. And we've got some more Joe and Jalen sound for you guys right now. So we'll go ahead and toss it over to those guys and see what else they have to say.
Of your locker room, were you too loud, not loud enough? I'm just looking for some.
I don't know. At the time, you think you say what needs to be said, but at the same time, I just have to be better. I got to make sure when we step on that floor that we're ready to execute, we're ready to be physical, we're ready to play harder than the other team. That's my.
Jalen, with us, Joe kind of put the loss on himself. He said he didn't have you guys ready to play. What's your response to hearing that?
I think it's a collective effort.
And starting with Ime's dismissal and all of what you've been through this season as a team, is this kind of thing mentally just coming to a head where you see the ending and it just seems like you guys are kind of just maybe throwing in the towel or just don't quite have the energy to finish this run?
I don't think so. I would hope not. That's not what I'm about. I'm going to fight to the end. So we're going to try to get our guys ready for the next game. And we come out and we put our best foot forward. And at the end of the day, that's what we got to do. And that's just how I see it. Series isn't over yet. It's looking bad, but, you come out, have some pride about yourself, and put your best foot forward.
He's dejected, all right.
He looks rattled.
I'll tell you what, Gary has his article ready to go. He's ready to hit send on that Game 4 loss.
Jalen just looks beat down there.
Oh, totally.
Just mentally
He looks
worn
almost
out. And that's, that's the challenge, getting over that mental hurdle of being mentally tough when you absolutely need it. That's what the playoffs is about. It's not about X's and O's. I mean, you've seen 82 games plus the playoffs. You know exactly what the hell that other team is running. But can you stop them? Can you execute can you overcome being down by 9 and find a way to chip away at that lead? Are you mentally strong enough to do the hard work? Because that's what the playoffs is about. And the Celtics so far in this series have shown no, they're not. And Jalen, to his point, the series isn't over, but it's pretty much over unless they do what has never been done before. That's the only way. So, Bobby, what's up, man?
I think we just lost Nick and we got Bobby. So,
all right.
What's up? Bucket Hat Bobby in the building.
I'm here. Celtics are not. This team just looked absent tonight. Stunning performance with their back against the wall. One emblematic of a team that, hate to use the word because it's so strong, but they quit tonight. I thought they didn't put the effort in to string together stops to work their way back into this game, and by the end of the third quarter just prayed that threes would get them back into it. And the story of the night, of course, is Joe's response, a guy who's been so defiant, defensive, and fiery all year, effectively taking full responsibility for this, admitting I think needs some clarification. Gary asked if he's lost the team or there's a disconnect there more specifically, and he said yes. I want to get a little more clarification on that. because again, it's a staggering quote. And
say that
he's
again,
admitting
Bobby.
that.
I think I misheard you. What's the quote?
Gary asked if there's a disconnect between Joe and the players right now, and Joe specifically said, because I want to quote him specifically.
We did
I don't want to say.
we put that video up. Yeah.
Yeah. So you all saw it. You all heard it. Can we glean from that Joe has lost the team?
Well, when they play the way they played tonight, I don't know if it's, Joe's lost the team or the team has lost each other. It doesn't feel like anyone's playing connected out there.
Right.
So I don't know if it's a – and listen, there's a blame pie here, right? So obviously Joe is going to take a portion of that blame pie because at the end of the day, he does have to coach his guys up. It is more important in the playoffs coaching than it is in the regular season, and you do have to make adjustments. It's a bit of a chess match. He is going up against one of the best coaches in the history of the game, and I think if the team, when I look at a head coach, it's not always X's and O's. It's not always about out of timeout plays. It's about the mentality that your team has going into these games, the sense of urgency, the sense of pride, the sense of, wanting to play for each other and, our backs are against the wall. Let's, we're on the road. We're in enemy territory. Let's be ready. It didn't feel like these guys were ready to go tonight, which I think was a surprise to everybody. I think a lot of people, even despite everything that we've seen, I think a lot of people thought the Celtics would come out tonight with a little bit of, I was hoping that they'd be a little angry. They'd come up with some attitude. They'd show that they are the better team, And it just felt like as soon as the Heat got going just a little bit, there was no comeback from the Celtics. There was no fight. They just continued to lollygag on offense, argue against the referees, not get back on defense. The Heat were whipping the ball around, and yeah, they hit a lot of their freaking shots. But guess what? That's how the Celtics won all the games this year too. They hit shots that the opponent gave them. Now the Celtics are on the other end of it.
Bad body language throughout, and that's why do, as careful as I am with the word quit, the body language was atrocious here. Tatum swinging his arm over while Duncan Robinson drove right by him, asking for a push-off call. That smart shove, man, how lucky did he get shoving? I think it was Gabe Vincent. The post. They went to the review, and maybe the refs gave him a break because he apologized right away, but that was a pretty aggressive swing he took back at Vincent there that I think easily could have gotten him, if not ejected, then at least a flagrant one or hostile act, whatever they end up calling something like that. Brown falling down a couple of times and staying there a little long, I thought.
Smart staying down.
Like you know what I noticed too?
Oh my God!
You know what I noticed too, Sherrod?
Wait,
a lot of players.
John. What album are you dressed as? What album?
I don't know. I still got my
what album are you? Are you Graduation? Are you Red? Are you?
I was Red.
I'm glad John's here. Staggering stuff tonight, John.
Straight out of Cornelia Street, folks. Here he is.
I just came from a party.
Don't watch the beginning of the show. The chat was very rude to you.
I'm here
so
for
Sherrod,
why were they?
I want to ask you this.
They said you quit on the team.
Why should I show up? I showed up.
Exactly.
Well, you did now.
Anyway,
Bobby just showed up about 5 minutes before you did, John, so he has the floor currently.
Well, I was
also,
just Sherrod's
mad at me. Sherrod's mad at me, too. Go on.
I'm always mad at you, Jimmy. You know this.
That's true.
I got a question for John, too. But, Sherrod, it looked like to me, along with all the other stuff I just mentioned, I didn't see Joe talking in the huddle much tonight. It looked like Horford took it over for most of the timeouts. Players were talking amongst each other. I asked Eric White about that, and he said they were just trying to figure out how to stay together.
There's still 3,000 angry people in here. Holy crap.
And they're angry. Yeah. And unfortunately, we haven't been able to keep up with the chat as much as I'd like to, so I missed a lot of
times. Go ahead, Bobby. Sorry, I don't mean that.
That timeout, Sherrod, that Spoelstra took when they cut it from, what was it, 31 to 27? It was kind of a hilarious timeout. The Corrales called out right next to us. It was a 4-0 run, and the Heat calling a timeout. But I don't think Joe even got in the huddle during that timeout. I think he met with his assistants. They broke into play, and he kind of gave them a clap, and they went on their way. I don't think he had much to say to these guys tonight. And, John, this is where I'm going to pull you in.
Did you guys get any post-game commentary on? What was the post-game reaction?
A lot.
Yeah?
John, Joe took full responsibility for this. Said he doesn't have the team ready to play. Said they lost their defensive identity, and that's on him. And Gary asked him if there's a disconnect between him and the players, and he said yes.
Yeah.
Spicy.
Yeah, and Jaylen Brown was very dejected tonight post game, very down. Didn't really have an answer to why things are the way they are. Not that he should. I don't think anybody has that answer. But we haven't seen anything from Tatum yet. Bobby, were you there for Tatum or no?
Josue's in on Tatum right now.
Okay, so we'll probably be getting something from him. I think we got something from Al. Let's go to Al here for a minute.
Coach Al
says that you guys have lost your defensive identity. Do you agree with that? What's your response to that?
Yeah. Definitely, we let their runs affect us early on, I feel like. And, we had some just bad turnovers early on that really hurt us. As far as the defense goes, for whatever reason, we have lost it. Not doing as good a job as we can. So, the challenge is this year that we've been able to bounce back and figure it out. And, our backs are against the wall now, so that's something that we have to do.
Al, you guys have come through in those moments, and this game felt like a must-win. What was different about tonight?
I obviously.
Anyway, that drives me crazy, and I'm going to try to calm myself down right now. But who was on this show all year saying this defense isn't right? And who asked Joe throughout the year over and over and over again, what's up with this defense? And just got barked back at repeatedly about how they were number 2, they were number 1 for this stretch of games, the rankings and this and that. They never looked right on defense this year. They never had a defensive mentality. Every time you asked about defense, Joe would turn it back to offense. And it was obvious that slipped this year. I didn't care what their ranking was. They had so many games that they just melted down on that end, and they let isolations kill them all year. In spots, they had a great defensive rebounding in the aggregate, but in spots, they gave up offensive rebounds that killed them. And when the playoffs came around, they started fouling a lot, and there just wasn't that crispness with the switching. Not to mention the passivity of dropping as much as they did this year. The defense, it's amazing it finished too. As many holes as it seemed to have throughout this year. And it took this many games to finally acknowledge that. I've defended Joe at every turn, John. It's impossible at this point.
I mean, sure. I mean, at this point, I mean, he's admitting it himself. Whatever it is, I think it's a multitude of things, but again, it's still going to let the players off the hook, though, isn't it? Like
you can't, yeah.
Like the problem I think is, and I know you've covered a ton of ground, so I'm not going to say anything you haven't said a million times already, but like they're front runners. This is what we've said kind of all year, and this has been the fear is, yeah, they'll blow you out when the threes are falling and everything's going good. Let's count the Tatum and Brown 30-point games and celebrate. But like, what happens when you're when someone gets in your way, when you're facing a challenge, when you got to dig deep? They can't. So like, it's easy to turn to the coach and be like, well, get them ready. Like, I just don't think it works like that. Like, it just, it would, if they listened or they had heart or they executed, they could have been a dominant offensive team and still won. They didn't. I'm not going to say they didn't need to be a great defensive team, but any form of good basketball would suffice. They're not doing it on either end. So you can point to the defense and say they don't have a defensive identity. I think that's because they had such a ridiculous one last year that you can say it's nothing close to that, and that's what made them dominant. But if they were a dominant offensive team and stuck to the game plan and kept doing what they were doing, they'd be competitive. They're not right now because they're horrible on offense. They're disconnected everywhere, Bobby. So I'm not just going to look at the defense and say the defense wasn't good all year and that's why they're losing now. They're losing now because they have no they have no identity, zero.
But we know
in either direction. They don't. So that's
and
the
the
problem.
offense.
And the offense has no plan. They just aren't used to it. Every time they see something, they devolve into mismatch hunting instead of running any sort of offense. It's just there's no fluidity to it at all. So again, it's on the players. I don't know. I'm curious. Sherrod hasn't moved yet, so I don't know. When you guys sliced up your blame pie, who got the biggest pieces tonight?
Joe.
All Joe, huh?
Not all
for me.
Joe, but no, it's Joe's a big part of the problem.
Yeah,
and it's really
Joe's
really
in trouble. Joe's a
big part of the problem, but Sherrod doesn't think he's a big enough part of the problem to do anything about it.
You mean to fire him? Let's just call it what it is, Jimmy. You want him fired?
I'm not saying I want him that. I'm saying you don't think he deserves.
If he's a big part of the problem, and I think he's going to get better, and I don't think that they're going to fire a third coach in 3 years. No,
I don't see how you can bring him back. I'm not going to lie. I think if it was I think if it was a different ownership group, he would not be back.
Yes.
But because it's this ownership group, they're not going to pay a coach to not coach after signing him. But I think someone else.
So it's just about that. It's about $500,000 or whatever the hell they signed him to.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, Sherrod, if they didn't extend him at the All-Star break, he's fired. That's what this is about.
If he
then that's an absolute joke.
If he still had the interim label, then he'd be
he
gone.
wouldn't be back. They'd run interviews.
Then it's an absolute joke. If that's the only reason, then
I don't think that's the only reason. I don't think that's the only reason, but I think that would be the most significant.
Then I think it's a joke. I think that's bad front office decision.
This is the thing that I always come back to when people want so and so fired. Who are you thinking about as a replacement? Because that's, to me, you don't fire someone unless you have an idea to replace them.
Listen,
because otherwise you could
potentially. There's a lot of replacements out there.
There's a lot of coaches.
And Jimmy, the point that you made earlier about there being this robust amount of coaches available now, you're right. Now, that's the case. That was not the case when they just realized right before the season that they got to get rid of Ime.
I'm not criticizing them I'm not criticizing them for that, Sherrod. I'm looking forward to the next season. I'm not looking past, they shouldn't have hired him. I'm not saying that. I'm saying, what do you do about this situation moving forward if there is a disconnect? If a lot of people on, I think I saw Eddie House said after the game that he thinks the players have quit on Joe Mazzulla. I mean, if that's the case, I'm not sitting out here with the pitchfork leading the cause.
I think they quit on each other.
Fired Joe Mazzulla. All I'm saying is too, but that's just what he said. My point is this.
I think they've quit on each other.
If this is a team built to win a championship, you need a coach that's ready to coach a championship caliber team. That's all. I'm not saying
what does that mean,
Joe
though? What does that mean to be ready to coach a championship? What does that mean? What are the qualifications?
A coach with more experience.
To get that.
A coach
Can
that's
I tell you this? The biggest load of crap surrounding the Celtics and Celtics fandom is this love and trust thing. I've never gotten a sense that there's trust among these guys with one another, or trust in a process, or trust in anything other than their own individual talent. I think they believe they are talented. I think they might believe other people have talent too, but there is no sense of these guys working for each other, playing for each other. I've never seen it. That's why you do it. You're doing it for one another. That's why you do and again, it's so friggin' cliche, but the grimy things. That's why you hit the deck. That's why you fight for people. That's why you run over to someone when they get knocked down and pick them up. That's you're doing it for each other. I've never gotten a sense that they do that at all, ever. It's a team. It's a collected. It's a team of talented individuals that just. When everything is sunny, they're going great. When everything's crappy, nobody steps up, nobody picks it up. Everyone's looking at everyone else. There's a lot of we. It's 5 years now, 4 years with this core. Everyone's going to look at the coach, and I think it's both. I don't think Joe's the guy for this job. He's not. I don't know that another coach comes in and magically fixes it. I'm still always going to look at the players.
They might have to address multiple. They might have to address multiple things, John. But it's impossible to exclude Joe from the conversation because
I think it's hard to. I think
there were a lot. I think there were a lot of questions.
He was never ready in the first place. He wasn't.
It's not even about. it's not even about ready. It's about he had a plan.
Capable.
He implemented it. Was it the right plan? Because I don't think what happened this year was, he couldn't institute things in time, or he didn't get his message across to the players. For a lot of this year, they did everything he wanted them to.
Coaching is really hard. It's really hard. If you are so adamant that your way is the right way, you need proof. You need proof of performance. It's really hard to get a bunch of people to believe in what you're telling them to do when you're a third-tier assistant and you've never had any success doing it.
How many times this year, John?
Extremely difficult to do that. Extremely
How many times
difficult.
this year, John, did we hear even Tatum and Brown, again, the leaders of this team, say, they're shooting a lot of threes?
What did Nick say?
Nick Josue?
Yeah.
He was very disappointed, and he kind of feels like they embarrassed themselves. They embarrassed the fans. They put there's some of the same stuff we thought. The leadership. There's no leader right now that you can see. I forget what he said about Mazzulla. I don't know what his take was on whether or not he's the guy or not. But Nick was basically, he couldn't even get angry tonight because he was just beaten down by these guys.
It's hard to get angry, right? It's embarrassing.
Right.
You know?
That's kind of where he fell on it, which I would co-sign. And I feel like Mazzulla's dominated a lot of this conversation here. I want to make it very clear. I put it on the players always over the coach. I know that the coach is always first to go, and if everyone is scared to part with the core of this team, which it feels like they are, then if you either want to make a change somewhere or you don't want to make any changes and just continue to do the same thing over and over and over again, then fine, go ahead and do that. I don't know how long people want to wait around. Many opportunities have come and gone with this core of guys. And yeah, the coaches have changed. And you can say, 3 years, 3 coaches, 3 years. Yeah, one of those coaches in Ime, that he didn't leave because he couldn't get it done here or the players didn't, listen to him or anything like that. That was another completely different situation. So I'm not gonna obviously blame the players on that one. But if they checked out on Brad and now if they've checked out on Mazzulla, who's the problem here? Is it the players or is it the coaches? Because Brad was a pretty good coach, coming into the league, and
that's
for a
always
while,
been my thing, Jimmy. I'm with you. Three coaches, same problems. At some point, you gotta look at the collective mirror and look and see what's looking back, and it's the same core of players.
The
Bobby, it's inexcusable. It's really quick, Bobby. It's inexcusable how this team just decided they weren't going to play defense this year. Like, they were too good for defense this year. They were just going to outshoot the opponent. And I've always said offense beats defense, but you still have to play defense. You still have to play defense. And what the Heat are doing is they're letting their defense turn into offense. How many times tonight did they get a Celtics turnover and run the other way and score in transition? While
their transition game was excellent.
Or a missed Celtics field goal tonight, and they're on the ground complaining to the referee, and the Heat go and score in transition. The Celtics stopped doing that. They don't play that way anymore.
And there's real roster building questions coming for this group. Tough decisions that start immediately. A lot of those, I think it's going to be easy to kick forward. So, as you say, Jimmy, the easiest thing to do is change the coach. And I think we saw for a lot this year.
Let me ask you this, though. What is it? Why are they broken? What broke here? How did they break like this?
They're not mentally tough.
It's one thing to lose. You lose to the Heat in 6 or something like that. We know they're not mentally tough. They've never been actually mentally tough. They've shown flashes of times where they have, like Game 6 against Philly, even though that was really close to falling apart. You saw it against Milwaukee last year. What broke them this year? What broke them? What broke them now?
A looseness, a casualness.
You think it's looseness?
Yes.
What do you think, Sherrod?
Because
what broke them?
How often did they have to address their issues this year?
I'm waiting for your finish, Bobby.
Whenever they lost, everything's fine. We're on to the next one.
That's fair. Well, Sherrod, what broke them? Why are they here, Sherrod?
I think what ultimately broke them was the reality that the blueprint that they knew got them to the finals was different than the blueprint that they were being asked to play. And they tried to be good soldiers and shoot a lot of threes, and it worked for a while. But at some point, you have to get back to whatever is your core. Their core is defense, and they have never been able to get back to that because they don't have the type of coaching. And I'm not just talking about Joe. I'm talking about that entire staff that emphasizes that side of the court because they're finding out firsthand what that looks like with Miami. Miami is all about defense. Even though they've got Jimmy Butler is a 20-point scorer, Bam Adebayo, 20-point scorer, Tyler Hero when he's healthy, he can also be that type of scorer. But at their absolute core is defense, and the Celtics, they've gotten away from that, and they can't. They know they need to get back there, but they can't for some reason. There's like a mental block that's preventing them from getting back to playing the way that they know you have to play in order to be successful in the playoffs.
Can I meet you guys halfway on that? I think the first 26 games when they did
I liked what
Joe
Bobby said too. But go on, John.
The first 26 games when they did what Joe said is almost kind of like the equivalent of like a slap hitter in baseball who weighs $170 hitting a home run. Like that was awesome, and that's just what you want to do over and over again. The other thing is, it was easier to win that way than it was to win with defense. So when they tried to get back to doing stuff, they tried to get back to winning the easy way instead of winning the hard way. The way they won last year, 35-40 games down the stretch and into the playoffs, was defense, which was hard. The way they won early in the season was wing the ball around, shoot a bunch of threes, play a little defense, doesn't matter because we're just going to run the teams out of the building with all of our awesome three-point shooting. I think they kept trying to go back to that rather than
They
trying to
shot
go
46
back to,
threes tonight, John.
I know
They just
they're
kept
trying to
launching
go.
them.
They're trying to go back to that rather than winning a hard way. They never committed to winning the hard way. They did it a little against Philly. You saw it. Games 2 and 3 against Philly. They got serious. They got serious on defense. Games 2 and 3 against Philly, and they came out in 4, and they're like, "We're all set." And then they rested again, and they did it again. And then they recommitted for a little. They never really committed to the hard way at any point in time. Hi, Josue.
I mean,
Hey,
that's
Josue.
exactly that's dead on, John. I mean, I caught 10 seconds of that, the last 10, 15 seconds of it, and it just felt like they thought they could just shoot their way, into a big lead. And when things didn't go their way in that first quarter, you just knew this wasn't going to be a humongous uphill battle for this team. This Miami Heat team, I mean, look, go through the last 2 games. Like, pick a guy who you least expect to score 25 plus, and Miami's got a new one for you every single game. I mean, like, this is like the kind of team that guys they're gonna seize their opportunity, but they're on a whole nother level that they're so confident against the Celtics that they're obviously comfortable going into this one, being back at home. But the Celtics never responded. They never had that type of we're going to snatch it from you. This thing isn't over. And the moment this team went into the second quarter, knowing that they had rented headspace in the Celtics' team as their identity as a team, it was over from that. It was over from there. I mean, look, Tatum, Jalen, ice cold in that first half was all they needed to see. And I felt like the Miami Heat just never for a second thought the Celtics had a remote chance in this game. And the Celtics just, look, people can say they quit in the second half. People can say that, the effort wasn't quite there. But just the way they approached the game in that first half, this game never belonged to them.
If I had to guess halftime speeches, it would have been Joe begging the guys just to do what we do, keep working the ball, shoot threes, and like trying to get them to do the same thing instead of
look at how they played in the third.
And I bet you Spoelstra's was, we've broken them. Do not let up. They are broken. If you apply a teeny bit of pressure, it's over.
They're gonna break. They're gonna break.
They're
broke. Chuck. Start chucking away threes.
Broken them.
Yeah.
They're gonna keep doing it. Don't let them off the hook. They're broken. You apply a little pressure here and it's over. And all of a sudden, boom, 27-point lead, gone. They broke them and they knew it. In that halftime, they were probably just strutting around. We friggin'
Totally. They were chest fully puffed out at halftime.
They knew it. They broke them and
after that first timeout in the third quarter. Yeah. I want to say there was about 3, maybe 4 consecutive offensive possessions where the Celtics didn't look for the best shot. They looked for the first shot. The first opportunity, the first possession of remote space between their defender, Chuck. And right there, man, he was like, "Oh, we got these guys. They're broken." You're absolutely right, John. And that's exactly what happened in that third quarter. You just knew there's no way in hell these guys are coming back.
And one of those plays, Josue, Tatum's lined up against Robinson. And that's the name of the game there, working that mismatch, getting the ball around and finding the right shot. But you're right, it was the first shot. And when you're chasing, trying to drive yourself back with threes when they're not falling, this is something I always question in the postseason when it's a smaller sample size. What are we talking about? About 100 threes in this series so far between 3 games? Celtics are shooting 29%. And they're not working for great ones. They're just trying to get them up there and meet like a quota, it feels like. And they struggled to get there because the Heat were taking it away in games 1 and 2. You talked about that great spoke cut, John. Tonight, it felt like we got to get to 46. We got to we got to approach 50. And in that third quarter, especially, they just fired them up.
Instead of heart again, and I don't even think this was. I don't think the second half was the math stuff. Sorry, Jimmy. I believe it was what Josue said. Done. Whatever. I'm just going to jack it here. It's hard work trying to work for good shots. We're not able to get them. First bit of daylight I see, I'm just going to let it fly, and hopefully they start going in. That's it. That's
Jalen chunked
that's like second night of a back-to-back sort of basketball, right?
Right. I mean, Jalen chunked like a 35-footer, and it was like 5-6 seconds into the possession. After they cross half court, I'm just like, these guys this is it. This is the way they want to play. This is the lazy chucking shots. Not to mention he airballed a wide open 3 from Jalen. Just airball.
Jimmy, where were you going? I jumped in there. Sorry.
Terrible.
I honestly kind of forget where I was going at that point, but I want to go back to briefly what Bobby mentioned. This team never held itself accountable this year. Whenever they lost, it was like Bobby said earlier. It was just like, yeah, go out there. We're just gonna go out there again and go get them next time. It was never.
There were never any issues. They never had to address.
They never had issues. They never had any sort of turmoil within, or if they did, everything was cool and calm. I put a comment up earlier from one of the guys in the chat. It said their leaders are too passive, and that's how they play, and it's true.
We've been saying that for how long?
They're way too cool for school, passive, not enough emotion. I talked about this with Sherrod earlier. There was no urgency in this team. There was no urgency tonight at all. I think we all thought, at the very least, they would come out with a little bit of fight, fire, anger. I mean, have you guys seen this team be angry once this year? They don't get angry. They get angry at the refs. That's about it. But I just don't see the fight in this team. And the Heat are the complete opposite. Those guys are fired up. Like you said,
how did we get back to that tonight with the refs again? How did that become the number one thing? You can't play this badly and
it's a default
and be looking to the refs to bail you out. You're losing by 30 points, guys. It's not okay. Fine, let's pretend 3 calls didn't go your way. What are you doing? You lose the ball, and again, this goes back. This is every bit of Tatum. I'm sorry of the way he was, and I know Jalen's a culprit and this and that, but Tatum. And at patches he was better this year, but that every time a shot doesn't go down or he turns it over, he looks around. It's just always what he does. It's a default response. That alone screams no accountability. It's not like, well, shit, I shouldn't have had my head down and lose the ball. It's, you could have called that. It was like, it's the funny thing is in many cases it's like, it's not even a foul, and he knows it's not a foul, but the turnaround is almost like some superstars get that call, and that's kind of like what he's saying. It's so odd.
So let's go way.
Occasionally that's called. Why not that time?
Right.
Let's go way back because the leadership issue is a big one here, and this is where we're going to split hairs over Joe and the players. Last year, they ceded leadership to the coach, and he did a great job with it. And this is why I think everybody misses Ime, is because he dominated that leadership position. And yeah, you have guys filling in spots like Smart and Horford. They talk all the time about collective accountability and stuff like that. So that's why you always get we when it comes to the accountability. Guys will say it's on me and stuff sometimes, but it doesn't really resonate. Over the last 3 years, where this core has really been in command, you never had a leader emerge. Even last year when everything was going great. Remember the captain stuff, John? They didn't want it. They didn't want to be the leaders. They didn't want the accountability. They didn't want to be the one that like links people together or addresses deficiencies.
We got killed for making a thing out of the captain thing. I'm still.
It's true.
I really don't believe people understood how bad that was. A new head coach was like, "I'm trying to appoint leaders," and everyone was like, "Nah, not me."
Mm-hmm.
We're all leaders.
That was unbelievable to me. It really was. That spoke volumes, but again, you forget about it because.
And so we're all looking at the
season
coach.
Turned around at the end of the year, so everyone forgot about it. That was a stunning development to me. That still says something about these guys.
We're all looking at the coach, waiting for him to be the leader again, and he's not Ime. He doesn't have the experience. He doesn't have the cachet. He doesn't have a lot of the things that Ime did. The presence, and even just the critical tone. You know, the no holds bars approach to coaching. He's not Ime. He's a different coach. So expecting him to be that and relying on him to be that to hold yourself accountable as a team, it's not going to work. So this goes to Sherrod's point. You're going to find another guy to take that mantle, and that's what you're going to rely on, the guy on the sideline. You're going to rely on the timeout. You're going to rely on just someone else to save you, the ref. At some point, and this is why Ime even at times didn't call timeouts and really, didn't call plays and really try to make these guys handle things on their own. They had to figure it out, and we're so many years into them not figuring it out, not really getting it, or not coming together. I mean, that's what it feels like a lot of the times to me is one player has some idea of what needs to change or what needs to be fixed. Another guy thinks everything's fine. Another guy thinks, let's go, guys, let's go. And they're just all over the place.
But even their coach wasn't accountable. Every single time something would go wrong, he'd tell you everything was fine. We just need to shoot more threes. It was a trend almost throughout the whole team all season long. It's like, if we just do what we're supposed to do, we'll be fine. There's been that feeling that you could always fall back on, and now you're just getting punched in the mouth over and over again, and you're just simply not ready for it.
And did he just feel the need? Because we did hear at times Joe would get into these guys behind the scenes. But did he feel the need to tiptoe around them publicly? I'm sure he did, because I don't think Joe was just unwilling to be critical. I think he just felt that to keep this room, to command some level of leadership over them, he needed to have everybody in his corner. So he said, I'm just not going to criticize anybody ever.
I was going to ask Josue what Tatum had to say, but I think we just lost him somehow.
We're going to get some Tatum reaction up in a little bit here as well. So, again, I'm catching up late. I know you said Joe got a big ration of the blame here, but what happened everywhere? Why did Rob Williams only play 4 minutes until like late in the third quarter? What happened there? Where how did Brogdon go into a complete zero? What in the world has happened to Derek White?
Well, they moved Rob to the bench and then he got into foul trouble fast.
Yeah.
So he was just relegated to
I get it, but he had 4 minutes like midway through the third quarter. Like, that's not a lot. So, like, you're only playing him 20 anyway, so what the hell? Like, I didn't understand that. Not like that would have saved anything, but, like, what was going on there? I didn't quite get it,
That's the other, whoever's to blame for it, and some of this is on Rob, too, for the health and everything, and, you can't control a lot of that, but Rob took a big step back this year. You lost Grant, and then you're leaning on him for 30 minutes tonight just because you're in trouble? I mean, that thing drove me crazy all year. And then, like you said, you don't go to Hauser at all in this series, even though that was something you wanted to develop and utilize this
I don't
year.
understand how you can play Robinson, but you can't play Hauser, but that's just me. I
Exactly, but that's the difference.
Confusing.
That's the difference right now, I think, in these two coaches, John.
I can't defend Joe anymore, John. I just can't.
You can't defend Joe because he did everything wrong, and he didn't try anything new, and he kept doing the wrong thing over and over again, hoping that it would end up being right. That's why Joe is indefensible at this point. I know he eventually went away from double big, but that's about the only adjustment he made all series. He didn't do anything. To mix things up, to shake things up. He didn't do anything. So he absolutely deserves a big piece of the blame pie. I'm being told by the people upstairs that matter that we are short one read. So we're going to tell you briefly about Athletic Greens here, one of our sponsors, which we're all going to need in the morning because we got a late one.
Yeah, we are.
a late one. It's a school
Monday's
night.
gonna hit me in the face. I'll tell you that.
I got to try to get my kids post Taylor Swift up for school tomorrow. That's not going to be easy.
No, it's not.
That's not going to
at
be
all.
easy.
No, it won't be.
But I might friggin' throw some athletic greens down her gullet. But
Yeah, get it going.
get it going. Jump up. Get
Toss
to
a
it.
little pre-workout in there, John. That'll get him up.
Yeah. So anyway, check out Athletic Greens if you haven't already. A great supplement. Start your day right. 75 vitamins, minerals, probiotics. Scoop of water and you're done. Great way to start your day and do all of the things that you probably are chasing with a million different pills and supplements, but you don't have to do that. It's all in one little package for you, and it comes right to your door. If you go to athleticgreens.com/garden, you get a free 1-year supply vitamin D, 5 free travel packs, and I'm told these things are on their way out, hot off the presses. Garden Report t-shirts, and on top of that, guys, I am going to tell you that this Garden Report store, this mythical store we've been talking about, is very close to in development, which will include Garden Report bucket hats.
What?
Yes, it will.
What about hard hats?
Hard hats and
Nobody wants them shit.
and mugs.
You won't be seeing me wearing this anytime soon, I don't think. Unfortunately.
Yeah, exactly. Stock is plummeting. So.
Oh man, we got some. Yeah.
Yikes.
So what happens here? Like, I mean, is this? I mean, just laying down like this is so shocking to me. Like, Sherrod, do you see any way Game 4 is competitive, or are they toast?
They're toast. They're toast. I mean, they're at a mentally weakened state that they're not going to get off the mat for this. And even if they do and make it relatively competitive, Miami is just too locked in to, frankly, have a game where they let you get away. And remember, I think one of the things you have to remember is the last time the Celtics were in a situation like this was back in 2017 against Chicago. And they lost the first two at home, and then Rondo got hurt, and then they won 4 in a row. Well, you know who else was on that team? Freaking Jimmy Butler. And you better believe that he was not going to allow that to be the case today. I thought early on he was getting everyone involved, and everyone was knocking down shots. So Jimmy's thinking, I'm just going to keep getting them involved because they don't really need me that much. But if things got a little squirrely, I think we just saw a much more active, engaged Jimmy Butler. But the bottom line is this: the Celtics have put themselves within one nail of having their coffin officially shut for the season, and I just don't see them coming out of the grave for this one. I just don't.
I'm not sure which outfit is which here, but it's Crockett or Tubbs here at the podium post game.
Jason, the narrative over the next 48 hours will be whether that you guys quit and you guys are not the team that people thought you were, and you're not the star, Jason, all of that. How do you ignore that over the next 2 days and try to focus on winning a game after such a poor performance?
I deleted Twitter from my phone to start the playoffs, so honestly, I haven't seen anything good, bad, or indifferent, since Game 1 against the Hawks. So, I'm certain after every game you win, you're the best player and the best team, and, when you lose, you're not the star and the team's not good enough. So I'm certain there'll be some of that, but, out of sight, out of mind. You don't see it because that's not what's important. What's important is, the guys in the locker room, teammates, coaches, and, we all in this together just trying to figure it out.
Jason.
Okay.
I got nothing.
Typical answer.
No, it's
just blah.
Let's just play another game, and
it's just consistently who he is. Win by 30, just a game. Get your ass kicked by 30, just a game.
Too cool.
I don't understand how there can be no one with fire, angst, attitude on this freaking roster. I mean, they're ridiculously talented because that's the only way you can win as many games as they have and not have that type of player, someone that plays has an edge to them. This is the level of disappointment on every level imaginable, coaching, players, execution, front office, go down the line, is probably as high now as it's ever been in the last decade or so on all those different fronts.
Yeah, go ahead.
Usually the one or two of those, it's real bad, but everything about this organization right now is in question.
I can't recall, like, I'm trying to think a team in Boston sports laying down, in this manner, and going out. And I can't right now, like nothing recent. Like I know Patriots got destroyed by the Bills a couple of years ago in the playoffs, but that was just a mismatch. It was David Goliath and True Colors came out. A team that's supposed to be this talented, literally just laying down and saying, "I'm all set." I don't recall it. Like, I'm sorry, guys, but like, if you talk about like playing here and it mattering or it meaning something and this and that, like you just disgraced yourselves in an extremely like just a major way that's not going to be forgotten. Like this is you'll be remembered like forever for this. It really is gross. You have a responsibility. You play in this market, you play for this team, you play in front of fans that like care as much as they do.
You're a different team.
I
You're
know
a
it's
different
just
team after
sports,
something like this too.
but this is hard to come back from. This
It's
is
hard.
disgraceful. Like this is stamped. It's imprinted. On your DNA. Like this is who you are. Laying down like this is so bad. I couldn't believe. I honestly I can't believe they laid down like this.
There's nothing left Joe can say either. Tatum, Brown, the leadership core of this team, they're going to have to make some sort of charge here in this series. And again, you're not thinking this is going to be the first team that comes down from 3-0, but make everybody believe in this again. Because if you go down in blowout fashion in Game 4 and nobody's caring, nobody's together, maybe a blame game starts internally, even if it doesn't get out there publicly, or guys are internalizing blame on whoever, you're not going to be able to come back from this, as John said. I mean, these are the kind of losses that end teams. You think of Phoenix losing. Think of Phoenix's devastating loss to Dallas a couple of years ago, and there's probably other examples I can't think of off the top of my head. Great teams can crumble off of moments like this, and man, this feels fractured. And guys are going to look to Tatum. I mean, Tatum's the one with the ball in his hands. Tatum's the guy who everything is built around. And it feels like a lot of the time everyone looks at him and he just kind of shrugs.
Well, like
and this is why I hate
Wouldn't you say, Bobby, that the Celtics are kind of playing as a team as Tatum sort of plays and carries himself typically right now, it feels like?
Yeah, they follow his lead. And he just hasn't really been present for a lot of the series. We asked him, at shoot around today about another report asked him about kind of getting himself involved again when the double team comes. And he's like, we like to play 4-on-3 and get downhill and take advantage of mismatches after I get off the ball. And it's so passive. I mean, if he wanted to, he could go get the ball again. He could go make a cut and get back on the ball. And they set themselves up for tonight by losing 2 bad games where he was just not present in the fourth quarter. That's on him. I mean, this is Joe's going to get all of the blame. This is on Jason Tatum. This is his team. This is on him.
It's on Tatum and Brown.
Yeah.
I mean,
agreed.
and I'm going to exempt
Some of
Brown.
the way to get out of this.
I'm going to exempt Brown to some degree because he tried this year to put his imprint on the team, but it was just really hard to from the position he's in. They could have worked things out better to kind of have more of an even balance at the top of the team, but sometime last year this became Tatum's team, John. It's not Tatum and Brown.
It's been Tatum's team, but you have 2 problems. One, you have what you want to do with Tatum, which is what like the Lakers do or have always done, or any team has done with LeBron, what you see the Miami Heat do with Jimmy Butler. Jimmy Butler said it after last game. What's your plan in the fourth quarter? Nothing really. They just give me the ball and then I just kind of go to work. And you either score, you make the right read, and you find people and you run the offense. That's what they want Tatum to do. He doesn't do it. He doesn't do it well enough to do that. And so when they ask him to do that, you're going to get mixed results. Sometimes it's going to work. Sometimes he's going to go off. But for the most part, you're getting mixed results off it. And Jaylen Brown is just when I get the ball in my hands, I can do one thing with it. So I'm going to try. And sometimes he goes off, and other times everything is forced. But again, their limitations are really on display against a team that exposes your flaws and lays them bare for everyone to see. So you kind of see it here. So I don't know what you do here at this point. I think it's almost back to the drawing board of what we were talking about with this team a while back of needing a dynamic playmaker with the ball in their hands.
I was just thinking
another
that.
dirty secret on this team that nobody wants to talk about is you look at point guard depth, and they have 3 outstanding players at the point guard position, and not a one of them is a dynamic playmaker, as a person who can dominate the ball, make plays, get it to the right people, creates a gravity towards themselves because of who they are. It just isn't the case. So you have a lot of people that can do a lot of different things, but the pieces are a little bit mismatched here because you want Tatum to have the ball all the time. What the hell are you doing with these point guards then? You know?
I mean, how much was Brogdon empowered to fix their issues this year, especially this series?
Yeah, what are these guys doing here? You have no idea. And then what's Brown's role? Do I stand in the corner, or every once in a while do you give me the ball and then I get to shoot? It's really weird, this whole
And doesn't that whole thing seem like it's reaching a boiling point fast?
But it's always been there. That's the thing is, it's there, right? This whole can Tatum and Brown play together thing that when they win a few games, everyone's like, oh, people said split these guys up. They're not a great match together. They kind of step on one another, or they haven't figured out how to work with one another, off one another. They haven't. So I don't really know what you do. You're just kind of stuck.
I don't know what you do there because, again,
I don't know what you do.
Nobody does.
We'll get to that another day.
Nobody's ever known. I don't know. Sherrod,
I don't know.
Sherrod, what do you do? Save us.
Well, they first and foremost need to save their damn selves, and they haven't figured that out. I think if you're Brad Stevens, you've got to look at everything. I still think that Tatum Brown, with the right pieces around him, can be championship caliber duo, but they've got to figure out some things. This as we near the end of the season, it really does feel as though from the very top all the way to the end of the bench, they've taken steps back from where they were a year ago, and it's inexplicable why that is. Because I don't think they know why they've taken steps back, but I think that if they're being honest and real with themselves, they'll at least own up to that reality that you're not as good a team as you were a year ago. And that's to me, that's the problem. I mean, it sounds real simple, but and there's different layers and levels to it, but ultimately that's what this is about. You're not as good as you were a year ago. And why are you not?
But they should be better. That's the odd part is, I think Rob not ever being the same guy affected them a bit. Just slow start, never really being himself. But they should be better. They got what they needed. They got an extra player and an extra scorer in Brogdon. He was good. Derek White became a good player instead of the crappy player that he was for most of last year when they got him. So they got an infusion of talent, and you thought some sort of depth, but then everything got weird. I don't know. Grant stopped playing. Rob was in and out. I don't know. I don't know.
Al can make shots.
And all of a sudden, Al can't make shots. We're not going to solve it tonight. Where else you guys want to go before we wrap it? We've been on for a bit, so, I'm sure you guys are gassed.
Is there anything you can do to make this a series again?
It's up to Tatum and Brown. They have to answer that question.
Man up, honestly.
Yeah,
they have to get out of their damn comfort zones, which they remain in a lot of the times. And I feel like it's not in the sense of, Tatum going off for 50 like he did the other in Game 7 or what he did in the fourth quarter. No, they have to get out of their comfort zone and holding people accountable because Mazzulla's not going to do it. It's frustrating in a way because you see how talented this team is. You see what they've done in the past, and they just don't learn from their mistakes. And going against a team that's constantly going to show you your mistakes and then make you pay for them over and over again instead of rising to the occasion, it's like they're their souls are being, you know what I mean? Like the Miami Heat has snatched their hearts out of this team in a way that I've never seen. And it starts with those guys, and I feel like there's a big disconnect, maybe not in the way, all right. I feel like there's a disconnect not in the way that they're leading, but in the way that they feel the solution is for this team. And whatever that is, they have to be on the same page. It's interesting. I caught up with Kemba Walker during the Atlanta Hawks series when things were great. And the Celtics looked like, at the time, right, that they were maybe not going to be a sweep, but this series is probably going to be over soon. And one of the things that Kemba said to me about this team and the championship aspiration that really stood out to me was, he said that Tatum and Brown, they have to lead, but they got to do it together. And he kept emphasizing that. And I'm like, that's interesting because the kind of season that they both had, career years, both of them make all NBA. Jalen for the first time makes all second team. You would think that there's some sort of, man, look at the progress this team is doing. These guys have to be on the same page. But when do we really get that sense that they're on the same page? Like, when do we ever think that these guys are going to, when things are down, again, hold guys accountable and try to inspire their team, right? I don't know. Maybe they lead by example. That's something that we always say about Tatum. He's not going to get in your face. He's not going to tell you to do. He's going to lead by example. Well, he's not doing a good job of that right now, and neither is his all-star counterpart. And I just feel like when that's what's going on with the Celtics team, and at the same time with Joe Mazzulla cutting this rotation down and refusing to change it, it just doesn't give much wiggle room for this team for another guy, or at least to wake these guys up. And maybe that's Marcus, but we didn't see that tonight either. So I just don't see how that's going to happen unless these two guys can force the issue in a way that doesn't mean that they have to go out and combine for 75 points, but instead just empower their teammates and find a way to get everyone on the same page, because the Miami Heat, man, this is looking easy for them right now.
You have to take a long look at that dynamic, and you have to do it honestly this summer, because it's now or never. These two guys going to be able to do it together, Josue, like you said. And it's not about being friends or hanging out. It's about figuring stuff out on the court.
See, Bobby, I think they're beyond that point if they lose this series. I really do. I don't know if the Jays leading the team. It might be fractured beyond.
You cannot run this. You cannot run this back. You cannot run this back. If
right.
Like
That's
this.
what I'm with you, John.
Can't.
I just feel like if you lose like this, whether it's a game, whether it's a sweep, whether it's in 5, whatever the case may be, I don't see a way that I don't know. Like, they're just not showing me those signs, especially guys like Tatum and Brown, and the way Jalen's is just. I feel like he was biting his tongue after this game. Like, he wanted to say so much more, but.
And I love that, Josue. I hate the answer being, trade Jalen, because I think his approach is what this team needs to follow, but some of his on-court limitations prevent him from being the leader of the team.
So yeah, what you need a better number one so Jalen can be himself? I don't know what you need at that point. Do you make it the Jalen show and go get a point guard? Like, what are you going to do? You're going to trade Tatum so Jalen
can't trade Tatum.
You can do anything you want, but the bottom line is I don't think you can run it back and just hope for the best. I really don't think so.
You could, but it's not going to yield championship results. Like I really
think you got problems. Jimmy, Sherrod, any last thoughts before we go?
Yeah, just kind of piggybacking off what Josue often says, they are beyond the point of needing an uncomfortable conversation.
Yeah.
I think between Jalen and Jason, that is why their leadership as a tandem isn't as impactful as it is, because you can't be authentically honest with your teammates until you're authentically honest with yourselves. And I don't think those two guys are. I think they understand each other. I think they respect the fact that they're both really good players. But Jalen needs to basically call Tatum on his bullshit, and vice versa. And I don't think they do that. I don't think
never going to do that.
But see, that's a problem, because when you think about the great teams, that's what the best players do. Because they know that the criticism that they're levying your way, it's not about being mean or evil. It's about making you a better player. Because if I make you better and you're making me better, we become a better team.
And you got
Kobe and Shaq couldn't stand each other, Sherrod. But they won 3 championships. It's like, that's an extreme example, but like it's it's a perfect example of you don't have to like each other, but you guys have to be on the same page. You guys have to, whenever is bothering you, whatever, you have to let that out. And I don't think they're at that point.
You got to talk about Marcus too, guys. You got to talk about Marcus. He's a part of this too.
Yeah. I mean,
Marcus is pretty good in these playoffs.
I
No,
know,
he's talking
but
about
this-
leadership.
easy
I'm
target.
saying,
leader.
I'm saying
Yeah.
the pieces. The pieces. These three guys are not on the same page and haven't been on the same page fully. And it's again, they're the core. They're the core behind this erratic style of play that you've been seeing, which is a little bit on, a little bit off, but nobody taking charge and being that guy. Jimmy,
Yeah,
anything
I'm with you guys. I mean,
to close?
oh, I'm good, right? Yeah. So the thing about Marcus is I think Marcus embodies what I like to see, what I'd like to see in Tatum and Brown. I think that, his attitude out there most times, his energy, what he gives you. I'm not talking about skill wise. I know that he's not as talented as those guys are, but you kind of want that approach to the game that he gives you in your two superstars, Tatum and Brown. I'm at the point, guys, where I just don't believe in these guys. And it's kind of been how I felt all year. I mean, in the playoffs.
I think that's where the fans are, too.
The fans are, too.
It took them forever. You friggin' guys
they-
took a long time to get
It took
there.
them a long time to come around. We were, negative and blah, 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 haters.
Not
but
trying to be negative, Jimmy. We couldn't even fully believe last year when they
Right,
were
I'm
killing
saying-
people because I was like,
that's what they're calling
know.
Yeah,
us.
but
I'm
then
not
what
saying
happened
that.
then, though, guys? They tricked us again. All right, everyone in this freaking panel had the Celtics winning this damn series,
But
and
that was-
I'm just like,
We
man,
did.
like,
We did, but
why,
it was
why
like,
did I?
Doesn't
Why
that
did
say
I
a
give
lot?
them
it was
the
like
benefit
we
of-
had to.
I felt like
because
we were compelled to. Yeah, but yeah, you're right, Josue. I mean,
weren't
We
like-
got looped into
it
it,
wasn't
man.
like-
We just saw them come back in that series, man. Like, ugh.
But,
Yeah.
but again,
I mean, I
it's-
never pictured this team winning a title.
Jimmy, what's up?
Sorry,
no, it's
Jimmy.
just,
Yeah, go
it's
ahead.
just been pulling teeth with these guys all year long. It's been a painful. I mean, I've never had a more miserable viewing experience with a team with the as good of a record as they had, and they were just a frustrating team. And again, this isn't the only year it's been like this, and it's tough to, it's tough I think for a lot of people to come up with the realization that it
I got a
starts
thought
at the
on it.
top. It starts at the top with your two guys, and
Right.
you can even go back to Kyrie. Maybe he had something to do with it too. Maybe he's brainwashed a couple of these guys.
Kyrie was right. Kyrie was right all along.
Either Kyrie was right or Kyrie
Stop it.
did something that
He believed too
poisoned the
after
water
that.
or something
Wow.
here. But for whatever reason, there is a lack of. It's not talent. These guys are extremely talented basketball players, but there's something on the character
It's
side.
accountability, Jimmy.
There's something somewhere lacking in the leadership role, and whether you want to go back to the example of nobody wanted the captaincy, whether you want to go back to there's no guy who wants to take on the Jimmy Butler stopper role. There's no guy that wants to be angry. There's no something that you're looking for in your leaders to take you to that next level. So unfortunately, I just don't believe in these guys anymore. I'll feel that way next year. If it's the same general makeup of these guys and they go out the way they do, I have no reason to believe in these guys moving forward. I just don't.
If you run it back, it could go really poorly.
I don't think I think you have to look at the coach and you have to look at the core if you go out this way. I don't think there's any choice. I'll let you guys know. Programming note: the late night show is coming on late. They're gonna check it out. There's Grant and Cornette, LB in the monitor. Why not?
Cornette was almost your leading scorer tonight. Can you believe that?
You're going to get a positive Aussie spin on this game. For those of you guys looking for it, they're going to bring some.
I don't think so.
They're going to bring some sunshine and tell you that everything's going to be all right. So check it out. Check it
11
out.
points in 12
They're not
minutes,
negative like the Garden Report.
I watched
They're
after
going to tell
game
you
two.
why
They
this
had to
loss.
really dig deep.
They're going to tell you why this loss wasn't actually that bad.
Lead with that Al presser.
Yeah.
For the positive.
For the Celtics.
I don't know,
loved
guys.
Al's shirt, by the way. That was pretty positive.
So we have game 4 on
I'm a
Tuesday?
Swiftie now, by the way. I'm done with the Celtics. I'm a Swiftie.
Yeah, that looked unbelievable. I'll be honest.
It was fun.
I was jealous.
Yep, that's
I
what
was
I am.
jealous.
We're gonna wrap it up, right, guys? It's fair. Let's kill it.
I think we have to kill it. I don't really.
Okay,
I mean, it's already dead.
Subscribe to our YouTube channel. If you want some more content coming from Bobby and
There's
Josue.
a lot of people watching this show still, John.
Still a lot. Check out the audio version. Hey, all of those guys can go head to the late night show if you want to keep the party going.
I just don't know what else we can say tonight. About
Check
these
out the
guys.
audio version. There's not much you can say.
they're at a loss and we're
Jimmy,
at a
you
loss.
started the show. Take us home.
Well, I mean, yeah, I did start the show. Sherrod jumped on. I started with Nick. Sherrod jumped on shortly after.
Oh man, Nick must have been going through it.
There was a lot of anger. You know, I think we were all fired up about. You know, I think we're all just disappointed more. It's like I'm not mad. I'm disappointed. It's like that whole thing. But I also am frustrated.
By the way, just remember, this could have happened in the first round if you got Miami in the first round. And you go in the first round, what are we thinking?
Same stuff that we're thinking now, I think. I don't even think it's much
It just
different.
would have been more glaring.
That's why. So to quickly, just to jump in there, this is why every trip. Fine, they made the finals last year. I'm not going to argue it, but why every single they made it this far. What do you mean they're not winners and blah 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 and stacking up conference finals appearances? So much of that has to do with who you play when. And whether or not you make it. So it means nothing. The difference between getting to the conference finals, like being like the Atlanta Hawks a few years ago, or the Knicks or whatever, flashing, and then you're nowhere near as close to a title as you think you are just because you made it. It's not like, ooh, conference finals this year. That means taking the leap next year. Hey, you know, Middleton being out, surviving the Bucks, not catching a certain team that you match up poorly against, not playing Miami earlier in these playoffs. Yeah, you're right, Bobby. Imagine if they go out. So none of that stuff means anything. Are you a championship team? A great question that was being asked was like, was it last show, or was it on our text thread? Have you ever seen a championship team act or behave like this? Ever? Like, imagine if they won tonight and they won a championship, would this be the most shocking championship team ever? Based off of, like, I don't know anyone.
Not the most shocking, but people would have been like, it was a weird.
Think of all past NBA champions. Has anyone behaved this way? Like, and been the way these guys are? Almost none. To get there, you have to be a different level of execution, grit. You know, it's totally different to get there and to win it, unless you're so ridiculously talented, which they're not. They're the most talented team in a field that has a lot of freaking parity, okay? This is not a dominant team. It's a good team, a very good one.
We figured out that answer very early on.
They play like a-holes all the time. I've never seen a team play this inconsistently and poorly and win titles. I don't think it happens.
I don't either.
I thought they had it last year. I mean, they had the scheme.
I thought they did too. I thought they were better than Golden State, and they got punked by a team that knows how to win championships.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, bro.
They beat themselves. I mean, credit to the
It's not like
Warriors,
Golden
but
State was
Celtics
awesome.
turned it over like every other freaking possession in that series.
They wilted. They wilted under pressure, and it's happening again now. You saw them go out really poorly last year, albeit in the finals, and you felt good that they made it to the finals. You're going to watch them go out really poorly again this year. The common theme is not how far you made it. The common theme is that when you faced a team that made life hard on you, you absolutely caved in and folded and looked really, really bad, and your best players did not answer the bell.
And it's
That's
different
the
coaches
common
this
theme
time.
between these 2 years with different coaches. So blame Joe all you want. The common theme is your best players, when pressed, fold.
Let's be clear, though. I mean, Joe.
I agree, John.
Talk about never coming back from something. I mean, what Joe had to go out there and do tonight was just.
It's bad.
Shocking.
Anyway, wrap it. Late show. Check it out. They lose. We're going to do at least one more of these on Tuesday. So come on back for
We'll be here.
Who knows what. We'll be here.
Bobby and Josue and Sherrod are gonna. At least they get to enjoy Miami for another day or so.
Yeah.
A little positive here.
Yeah.
At least another day. At least.
Enjoy, guys. Thank you for.
The rest of us schmucks are going to work in a few hours. Sucks.
Yeah.
Hey,
Thanks, Celtics.
you call yourself a schmuck, man.
No, man,
Look
I
at
feel
this.
like it after tonight. I feel like one.
Look at that. There have to be changes, not just the team. Garden Report might have to go through
Can't
some
come back with
changes.
the same core.
Cannot come back with the same core.
We're also
No
coming up
backbone.
short here.
Man,
No backbone.
Mike also thinks we need a new playmaker.
Yeah.
Yeah. You can't come back.
Marcus
with the same
Smart is
core.
fine. All right, Mike.
I agree, Mike. This might be my last season. We will see you guys.
Hey, Marcus, don't go.
We'll see you guys on Tuesday.